She called him most special guest. Not her husband, not the father of her children, not the man who paid for the goddamn caterer, the band, the balloon arch shaped like a Dior bag. No, her boss. The one with two white veneers and hands that lingered on her back like he paid rent. That's what it said on the digital invitation. Please join us to celebrate my birthday. Special thanks to Mr. Harper, my most special guest, for making this year unforgettable. A smiling emoji, a pink heart. I was staring at my screen like I'd just been CC'd on a love note meant for someone else. She sent it to me by accident, I told myself. Maybe she forgot I was on the list. So I waited for her to come downstairs, spot the laptop open, see my expression, and go, oh God, I didn't mean it like that. But instead she walked into the kitchen, grabbed a LaCroix, and hummed. Not a single glance at the screen. So I asked, calm as I could, you invited your boss? She didn't even look up. Of course. Why wouldn't I? He's the only guest you called most special. Still calm, almost amused. I don't even get a title? Oh my God, are we seriously doing this again? She groaned, cracking the can open. It's a birthday party. He's my mentor. It's polite. No, last year was polite. This? I turned the laptop toward her. This is intentional. She rolled her eyes. You're being ridiculous. You're just insecure because he's successful and confident. That word again. Insecure. The same word she used when I mentioned how her text to him never had punctuation but always had emojis. When I noticed she suddenly bought cologne for the guest bathroom. When she started keeping her phone face down, screen silent. So I said it clearly, quietly, and once, if he comes, I'm done. She stopped sipping. That was the first time she even really looked at me that morning. You're threatening to leave me over a guest at a party? No, I'm setting a boundary. You can cross it if you want, but I won't be standing on the other side. The silence hung thick between us for a beat. She blinked, then smirked. Fine, she said, like I told her the chicken was overcooked. You do what you have to do. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just stood, nodded once, and went upstairs. We had a shared calendar. I opened it, cleared my name from the party RSVP. She'd see it when she checked head count. That was the only message I needed to send. By the way, if you're still reading, more than 97% of people never hit subscribe. Wild, right? It takes a second, but it actually motivates the team to keep stories like this alive and unfiltered. Just saying. Back to the storm. That night, she didn't say another word about the guest list. She went about setting up the house like nothing had happened. Candles, music, perfume mist in the hallway, like she was staging a hotel. I watched her rehearse her laugh in the mirror, practicing charm, like this was a performance she had to nail. And maybe it was. She didn't ask me if I was still coming, didn't ask what I meant, or if I'd reconsider. She assumed I was bluffing, that I'd fold like I always had. Here's the thing. Most men let small humiliations slide. Death by 1,000 shrugs. We pretend we don't see the long glances, the extra text messages, the new dress that wasn't for us. We're told to be cool, be chill, don't be controlling. So we bottle it, smile through it, laugh at our own expense, until one day we stop laughing. So no, I didn't show up. I didn't text her good luck. I didn't ask how many people showed. I didn't even watch her Instagram stories. I already knew what would be on them. Her too close to him, drinks in hand, surrounded by people who wouldn't care that the husband wasn't there. I wasn't part of that scene anymore. I had my own to write. Because when she crossed that line, I didn't chase. I planned. When she pushed that boundary, I didn't scream. I pulled away and quietly took the foundation with me. See, she thought it was about the party. She had no idea it was about the company. The night of the party, I parked 2 blocks away. Not to spy. I'd already decided I didn't need to. I just wanted to hear the music leak out the windows. I wanted to feel the floorboards of my old life shake while I stood on new ground. I told her I had work. She barely blinked. You work too much, she muttered, brushing on highlighter like she was dusting herself with currency. Try not to ruin the vibe when you come back. I didn't correct her. I wouldn't be coming back. Not tonight. Probably not ever. From the sidewalk, I could see the shimmer of light through our living room windows. Laughter, glasses clinking, the echo of heels on hardwood. The playlist I had made for her 3 birthdays ago now looped behind other men's jokes. She greeted them at the door in that green satin dress she once swore she'd only wear for me. It still fit her like a secret. She wore red lipstick, Not the nude tone she usually preferred. Bolder, louder. She was dressing for attention, not affection. And then he arrived. I didn't need to see his face to know it was him. You can hear entitlement in the way a man shuts a car door. She answered it fast, like she'd been watching the clock. A laugh too loud. A hand that rested too comfortably on his arm. "Everyone, this is Mr. Harper, my most special guest," she said. Laughter followed. "Honestly, he's the reason I get up every morning." Another wave of chuckles. Clinks of glass. Someone whistled. She didn't correct them. The word husband didn't leave her lips that night. One of our mutual friends, Chris, texted me a photo around 9:30. No caption. Just a shot of her with a champagne flute, head tossed back, Harper's hand not just on her shoulder but sliding a little too far down the silk. She didn't stop him. She leaned in. I didn't reply. I just saved it. They toasted. To her, to his unmatched leadership, to inspiration, to long nights at the office. There was cake, candles. Someone brought out a tiny trophy they made that read CEO of my heart. She posed with it next to him while the room howled. A harmless joke, they'd call it later, but the laughter sounded too rehearsed, too comfortable, like everyone had been waiting for me to disappear. I wonder if anyone asked where I was. I wonder if she even noticed I'd deleted my Instagram earlier that evening. Not deactivated, deleted, like a shadow peeling itself off a wall. Chris told me later she made a show of saying, "Oh, he's just being dramatic," when someone did ask. "He's always like this. Everything's a power move." Then, giggling, "Let him sulk. I needed a night for me." And so she danced. With Harper. With the rhythm of a woman who thinks the song will never end. She poured drinks like liquid forgiveness. She made promises with eyes she thought I'd never see. But I saw. Every pixel of it, every shoulder brush, every smile that lingered a second too long. I didn't need cameras. I had the oldest lens in the world, knowing someone too well. I'd studied her like a language for 12 years. And now I was fluent in her betrayal. Here's what she didn't understand. Silence is not the same as surrender. Absence is not the same as apathy. I wasn't avoiding a fight. I was documenting. Quietly, thoroughly, and without mercy. And I'd already started the clock on something she couldn't toast her way out of. By the time the last glass hit the sink and the last song faded out, the first domino had already tipped. She just didn't know it yet. She thought she'd won, that I'd taken my ball and gone home, that I was licking my wounds somewhere with whiskey and regret. But I wasn't wounded. I was awake. And everything she just did on that dance floor, I had it in writing. She came home in heels that clicked like applause on the tile, still half drunk on flirtation and Prosecco. Purse swinging, lip gloss smudged, the faint scent of some stranger's cologne clinging to her wrist. She looked around, expecting a silent war zone, maybe me on the couch, with clenched fists and blood in my eyes, or a petty argument, something small enough for her to spin into my fault. But the silence that greeted her wasn't cold. It was surgical. The living room looked off, subtly, like someone had taken a ruler to the furniture and removed the molecules that mattered. The coasters were gone. The antique chessboard I never let anyone touch vanished. Half the books on the shelf missing, not randomly, but in measured, intentional gaps. Her laughter, still lingering from the Uber ride, fell flat like a balloon on carpet. She called out once, light, casual, "Babe?" No answer. She went upstairs, still thinking maybe I was sulking or asleep, that I'd give her the usual icy shoulder, then thaw out in 2 days after enough guilt baking and strategic lingerie. Then she opened the closet, half empty, my side, clean. Not chaotic like a man in a rage, not panicked like someone running, but clean, vacuumed. One hanger remained. Just one, on it. The best husband ever t-shirt she got me 4 birthdays ago. As a joke, I hadn't worn it since. I left it there because I wanted her to see it and feel the punch. That's when the noise stopped. That's when she froze and she turned to the bed, and there it was, the note, simple, my handwriting. A single sentence. Per our conversation, I'm honoring my word. Next to it, a long, stiff envelope. Legal size, sealed, embossed with the name of my attorney. Not dramatic, not even a post-it for flavor. Just cold procedure. She sat down slowly, like the air had thickened. She didn't open the envelope right away. She just stared at it. You could almost hear her rehearsing the mental gymnastics. This is overreacting. He's trying to scare me. It's performative. He'll be back. He always comes back. Then the thoughts got quieter, more frantic. Why is it from a lawyer? What's in that envelope? What did I miss? She paced. She called my phone straight to voicemail, then again and again texted me, "Can we talk? This is crazy. Please don't do anything stupid." She checked the garage. My car was gone. She checked the safe, still locked, but the little tell I left, the key taped inside the cereal box, was missing. I knew she'd remember that. It was part of a stupid inside joke from 6 years ago. "Where do you hide the truth?" I'd asked once while tipsy. "In something boring," I'd said, "like cornflakes." I knew she'd check it. I wanted her to. No money was missing, no documents, but the absence would rattle her, because what really scares people isn't a locked door. It's a door that's open when it shouldn't be. By midnight, she was pacing in circles. The messages got shorter. "Seriously? You're being cruel. Come home." But I was already somewhere she wouldn't think to check. Not my brother's, not a hotel, not some affair-ridden crash pad. I was in a rental 2 towns over, prepaid, under a shell company I'd formed 6 months prior. That's the thing about long marriages. If you really want out, you don't storm off. You unzip your life, 1 inch at a time, until you can step out of it clean. Back in the house, she finally opened the envelope. Inside, a formal letter from my attorney. Not a divorce filing, not yet, just a notification. Preliminary intentions, financial disclosures, marital asset evaluation prep, a quiet warning, the way a seasoned chef places a knife on the table, not to use but to remind you it's there. She reread the note again. Per our conversation, I'm honoring my word, not threatening, not punishing, honoring. I knew the phrase would dig at her, because it wasn't dramatic, it was final. The morning after the party, she woke up alone for the first time in 10 years. The space beside her in bed was cold, the pillow untouched. No scent, no trace. Just the eerie stillness of a silence that had stopped being passive. She wandered into the kitchen, barefoot, robe draped over her shoulders like she was still playing house. The sunlight mocked her. It lit up the countertop where she'd dropped the envelope, creased now from where she'd clutched it at 3 a.m., rereading phrases like voluntary separation of assets and withholding of joint access, pending advisory review. She made coffee with a trembling hand and no appetite, letting the machine sputter and steam while her eyes stayed locked on that letter. The words were too measured. No rage, no accusations, just meticulous withdrawal. That was what got to her. Because rage she could fight, but precision was a verdict. She paced, texted again, still no answer. And then, at 9:17 a.m., the front door slammed so hard the walls shook. She jumped, mug clattering to the floor, coffee spraying like blood across the white tile. Her boss, Harper, face red, tie askew, sweat at his temples despite the November chill. He didn't knock, he didn't greet, he stormed in. "What the hell did you say to him?" he barked, voice echoing off the walls. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" She blinked at him, mouth open. Why are you? "Don't play dumb with me, Madison," he snapped, shoving his phone in her face. "That's from our general counsel. Your husband's attorney just called the company at 7:45 this morning. The board has called an emergency meeting for noon. I didn't say anything to him," she stammered. "He left me. He moved out. I don't even know what's happening." Harper paced, running both hands through his hair like he was trying to rub answers into his scalp. "He said he's invoking Clause 17C. Do you even know what that means?" She just stared. He threw his hands in the air. "Of course you don't. Jesus Christ, you have no idea who your husband is, do you?" That cut through the noise like a scalpel. She blinked. What does that mean?" Harper laughed once, short, bitter. "It means I've been blind. It means you just became the center of a legal grenade." He turned to the kitchen island, grabbed a napkin, and started scribbling. Clause 17C triggers a reallocation of voting power in cases of internal ethics violations. Internal, Madison, as in romantic relationships between executives and employees that create a conflict of interest. He jabbed the pen down. It lets major silent shareholders temporarily seize control from executives under investigation. That's what he filed. "I'm not even an executive," she said weakly. "But I am," Harper hissed. "And your husband, whatever the hell his real position is, just went nuclear." She shook her head. No, no, this is a mistake. He's not even involved with the company. He's just finance. Oh, he's finance, all right, Ed Harper muttered. You think I didn't recognize the name after they said it? It rang bells from before I even started here. Holdings, proxy trusts, layered partnerships. Your husband is a ghost shark, Madison. He swims silent and deep. She backed against the counter. He never told me? Of course he didn't. That's the kind of man you joke about being boring, right? Predictable. Always home by 7. Always polite at parties. God forbid he raised his voice. He stared at her, eyes wild now. You invited me into your house. You flaunted me around. You toasted me in front of 50 people. And now I'm being called into a legal review because your boring husband apparently owns more of my company than the damn CEO. She felt the blood drain from her face. But how? I mean, he never said. Harper leaned in, voice suddenly low and shaking. What the hell did you make him do? She opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Because the truth was simple. She hadn't made him do anything. She had just underestimated him. And now the whole damn sky was starting to fall. She didn't speak for a long time after Harper stormed out, not even when the door slammed behind him so hard the wreath fell from the hook. She just stood there, eyes glazed, replaying every sarcastic comment she'd ever tossed at me. Every, you're just bitter because he has a jet jab. Every time she'd dismiss my evenings with, what even is private equity anyway? Now she was choking on those jokes. Harper's tantrum had cracked something open, and dread poured through the fault line. She sat at the kitchen table, my empty coffee mug still on the counter like a ghost. And finally, she picked up her laptop. She hadn't Googled me in years, not since before the wedding, back when she thought a man's worth was measured by how easy he was to explain to her friends. But now she needed answers. And fast. She searched my name. What came up wasn't me, not directly, not yet, but she recognized the trust. The name I once floated during a weekend wine chat. Sandwick. She thought I was just making conversation, some hypothetical about offshore protections. Turns out, Sandwick Holdings was very real. Then she searched the company Harper ran. She scanned the investor page. Scroll, and there, buried in the fine print like a landmine, was a tiny footnote. Primary Series A contributions executed via Sandwick Trust, managed by proxy under third-party advisement. That third party? My firm, which she never bothered to ask about, which she once called an expensive hobby. And just like that, the glass wall shattered. The firm she thought did back-office cleanup was, in fact, sitting on the board-level cap table of her boss's entire empire. I wasn't just in finance. I was finance. She sat back, fingers hovering over the trackpad like it was rigged to explode. Because it was. Her entire understanding of our life, the dinners, the donations, the little family vacations that I always insisted on paying in full, was now exposed for what it really was, a game she never bothered to learn the rules of. And now the rules were playing her. I had gone in silently years ago, pre-IPO, back when Harper's company was just another loudmouth disruptor in a suit. I bought in when everyone else was bluffing. And I never said a word, because I didn't need to be seen to be powerful. Then she found the clause. It took digging. Bylaws aren't easy to find unless you know where to look. But she did. Clause 17C. In the event of a verified romantic entanglement between executive management and any individual with secondary influence, shares held under silent advisement may trigger a reversion of control pending internal ethics review. It sounded like legal soup, but it meant something very clear. Because of her, I could now vote, and not just vote, override. And I'd done exactly that, hours before she got home. The call Harper received, that wasn't a threat, that was activation. And here's the part she hadn't pieced together yet. The entire clause only existed because I had suggested it, years ago. During a minor restructuring, a compliance officer had flagged CEO romances as a potential PR issue. I wrote a few sample clauses as a favor to the board, and buried one with a very specific trigger. It sat dormant, untouched, unneeded, until her party, until she wrapped her arm around Harper and said he was the reason she woke up in the morning. She gave me the match. I just remembered where I'd left the gasoline. Now Harper wasn't just shouting because he was angry. He was shouting because he was sinking. By sundown, she'd already gotten 3 calls from HR, 2 from legal, 1 from a private number that she let ring until voicemail, then deleted before listening. The system was in motion now, a slow, glacial shift of power, not loud, not obvious, but irreversible. And for the first time since she met me, she realized she'd never actually known who I was. It took exactly 48 hours for her name to go from office favorite to legal liability. On Monday morning, she showed up to work like a woman trying to outwalk a landslide. Crisp blouse, high heels too loud on polished tile, oversized sunglasses that made her look more hungover than mysterious. She told herself it was all overblown, a misunderstanding. Harper would smooth it over. He always did. The receptionist didn't make eye contact. The elevator ride up was silent, and her badge didn't work the first time she swiped. Inside the executive floor, something felt different. No more jokes at her desk, no side hugs from marketing, just stiff nods, clipped glances, as if everyone suddenly remembered there was a policy manual. She made it to her office, flicked on the lights, and froze. On her desk sat a printed packet with a yellow sticky note on top. Please see HR before noon. M. It was from the VP of Compliance. The packet was fat. Bylaw excerpts, internal memos, and a full printout of Clause 17C. She read the opening paragraph 3 times before her eyes stopped skipping. In the event of conflict of interest behavior involving executive staff and individuals with familial or marital ties to stakeholders, a temporary reallocation of voting rights may be triggered in favor of non-executive shareholders pending a full ethics investigation. Her husband hadn't just pulled a lever, he'd written the goddamn blueprint. By 11:42 a.m., Harper had been suspended pending review. It was all done quietly, of course. Executives don't get dragged out, they get access restricted. EE changes the passwords, not security. But still, everyone noticed. His office was locked, his assistant tearful. The whispers started instantly. By noon, HR had been subpoenaed, not contacted. Turns out, she had made the mistake of using her company email to send cute messages to Harper over the past year. Nothing explicit, she wasn't that dumb, but enough flirty shorthand and poorly timed heart emojis to draw a clear line through the middle of an inappropriate relationship. And some of it dated back to the company's biggest merger period, which made her a risk. By 2:15 p.m., she was invited to join a call with internal counsel and the head of people operations. It started politely. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to take a leave of absence. Opportunity, like it was a vacation. She stammered something about due process, but they were already ahead of her. No one is accusing you of wrongdoing, the HR director said, smooth and slow. This is about optics and compliance. It's best for the company if you take some time. She wasn't fired. She wasn't even formally reprimanded. She was erased. The kind of clean deletion only corporations know how to do. No stain, just silence. When she came back to collect her things, 3 days later, her nameplate was gone. Her inbox auto-responded with "on leave." And every person who once joined her for bottomless brunch now avoided eye contact in the hallway. But the real gut punch? Her name didn't show up on the reissued company org chart, not even in gray. She went home that night and poured herself a drink. No music, no lights, just one lamp and a bottle of something expensive I'd bought and she never appreciated. Her phone buzzed with a message from Chris, our mutual friend, the one who'd sent me that photo. It said only, "You never understood him. That was your mistake." She stared at the screen, because now, her personal choice, a birthday toast, a joke, a hand on a shoulder, had snowballed into corporate disaster. The very thing she'd built her identity around, her ambition, her rise, her place at the table, was suddenly not hers. It was mine. And all I had to do was let her keep speaking. She sat in the driver's seat, engine off, eyes locked on the mirrored building in front of her, glass and steel and shame. The office that once felt like hers now loomed like a monument to miscalculation. Inside, through the wide lobby windows, she could see them. 2 security officers flanking Harper as he walked toward the exit. Expression tight, jaw set. Not arrested, not disgraced, just removed, professionally, Precisely, like a bad line of code getting patched. No one was screaming, no one was making a scene, but the silence outside that door was louder than any siren. Her phone buzzed. Chris. She didn't want to answer. He was the only one who hadn't ghosted her completely, but that didn't mean he wasn't keeping a tally. Still, she slid her finger across the screen and held it to her ear without speaking. "You watching it happen?" he asked, voice low, not cruel. She said nothing. "I figured," he sighed. "Heard the board voted this morning. Emergency restructuring, temporary freeze on executive privileges. Harper's out. Some consultant group is being brought in." Her throat tightened. "I didn't think it would get this far." Chris let that hang. "You remember," he said finally, "back when you two fought about that dumb art auction, when you bid on that stupid metal sculpture without telling him, and he didn't say a word until the credit card bill came in?" She remembered. She'd laughed, called it harmless. Said he was being too controlled. "That's when you should have worried," Chris said softly. "He never yells. He never throws plates. He doesn't react. He recalibrates." She blinked hard. The security guards were back at their post now. Harper was gone. "You told me once he was too calm to be dangerous," Chris continued. "You thought that meant he was weak." "I didn't mean," she started, but stopped herself. Because she did. She had meant it. "You always thought if he wasn't fighting for you, he didn't care. But the truth is, when he stops arguing, that's when he's already building the exit." She looked down at her hands, shaking slightly in her lap. "I thought he'd come back," she whispered. "He always does." "Not this time," Chris said. "Not after the party. Not after you smiled like that." She wanted to deny it, to tell Chris he didn't understand, that Harper was charming, persistent, that nothing happened. But she knew the pictures existed, the video, the moment at the cake table where she clinked her glass against Harper's and said, "To the men who matter." That phrase alone had circulated internally. Someone on the board flagged it. The ethics officer had it quoted in their summary file. "You don't need an affair to cause a scandal. You just need appearance." "You lit a fuse," Chris said, voice distant. "He just timed the detonation." She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. "You always joked he was too boring to cheat," Chris added. "But he didn't cheat. He waited. That's worse in a way. Because now no one saw her as a victim. They saw her as a warning." She ended the call without another word and sat there in the car, parked and powerless, while the empire she once paraded around in heels collapsed in quiet, calculated increments. She thought back to every moment she'd rolled her eyes at his calm. Every time she told friends he was a little dull but safe. Every time she said, "I could walk all over him if I wanted." And now, she realized she had, right off the edge. It was a Thursday when she first saw the updated filings. Her inbox pinged with an alert from a compliance digest she'd forgotten to unsubscribe from, an automatic notification about board movement and shareholder disclosures buried among newsletters and legal updates. It should have gone straight to trash. But the subject line caught her eye. "New majority voting proxy declared. See full ownership report." She clicked out of instinct, still clinging to the delusion that this might be a door back in. Instead it was a wall. The PDF loaded slow, like fate buffering. And there, halfway down the page, under the updated Series A and B allocations, her name appeared, Madison R. Stone, 8.4% equity stake. She stared at it. Blinked, stared again. She hadn't bought any shares. She didn't own anything. Her compensation package never included options. Not at that level. But it was there, black ink, no asterisks, her name, and below it, in smaller font, the catch. Held via Stone Family Irrevocable Trust. Voting rights assigned to Stone Advisory Group, LLC. That was his firm. Not a revenge letter, not a scream. A structural shift. He'd made her the public face of a stake she couldn't touch, couldn't vote on, couldn't even disclaim without a legal bloodbath. The equity was hers, but the power was all his. It was perfect. Cruel, but perfect. Because now, anyone scanning the ownership table would see her name and assume influence, leverage, board access, status. But behind the glass, behind the signatures, behind the trust mechanics, he controlled everything. She wasn't in charge. She was furniture. She slammed the laptop shut and paced the living room of the apartment she was now renting month to month. The echoes felt louder than usual. Her lawyer had told her not to speak publicly, that anything she said could jeopardize the balance. Whatever that meant, balance. As if she was walking on a wire he had strung between skyscrapers. She pulled out the trust document, the one she'd ignored when the envelope arrived last week. It was dense, legal Latin and case law citations, flowcharts, and diagrams. But she pushed through, line by line. The shares had been purchased under a layered vehicle years ago. Sandwick Holdings, the same name she now loathed like an allergy. At some point during the marriage, he'd transferred ownership of a small portion into a family trust in her name, made her a passive beneficiary, a gesture that at the time probably looked like love. She remembered now, vaguely, him mentioning a tax-efficient gift, something about future planning. She'd smiled, nodded, and gone back to painting her nails, but now she saw it. This wasn't a gift, it was a lever. He hadn't just retaliated, he'd restructured the company around her mistake. Because by triggering Clause 17C and owning the swing vote, he didn't just remove Harper, he forced the board into a restructure. He realigned oversight, installed interim compliance, and quietly, efficiently, folded her into the paperwork like she was nothing more than a line item. Worse still, she couldn't even sue. Any move against the trust would require litigation against herself. Any claim of undue influence would invite press, exposure, depositions, and if she publicly denied the connection, it would look like she was distancing herself from financial interest, a violation of multiple fiduciary standards. She was trapped, wealthy on paper, but gagged by structure. The company sent her an auto-generated invite to the next shareholder webinar. "We value your insights," and the email said. She nearly threw her phone, because the one insight she had, that the man she'd mocked, dismissed, and stepped over had just made her the mascot of her own downfall, wasn't one she could say out loud. She wasn't a leader anymore. She was a warning label, an empty seat at a table she used to brag about. And the worst part, every time someone looked at that stakeholder list, they'd whisper her name like she was powerful, and she'd have to smile and nod while he pulled every string from behind the curtain. The envelope was thick, navy blue, and hand-addressed. No return label, just a foil-stamped company crest on the back, polished and smug like the kind of confidence you can only buy in bulk. When she opened it, her hands trembled a little. "You are cordially invited to the annual shareholder recognition dinner." And below that, in clean serif font, "Spouses welcome. Not +1, not guest. Spouses." She stared at that word like it had teeth. Part of her thought it had to be a mistake. Surely, after everything, after the clause, the leave of absence, the humiliation, surely no one wanted her at this dinner. But then again, her name was still on the stake list. Still on the disclosures, even if she couldn't vote, even if she couldn't breathe without checking if it violated some clause in the trust agreement, technically, legally, she was still a face, so she RSVP'd yes. She told herself it was to prove something, that she still had a place in the room, that she still mattered, that she hadn't been turned into a decorative asset. She picked her dress like a soldier choosing armor, sleek black high collar, conservative enough for optics, sharp enough to slice. Her heels were silent, her makeup flawless. She wanted to look unshakable. She arrived alone. The venue was some converted museum with ceilings like a cathedral and lighting that made everyone look slightly more expensive than they really were. Waiters with synchronized posture floated between tables with trays of amuse-bouche no one could pronounce. She stepped through the door, and the first thing she saw was him, already there, already speaking to a small group near the bar. Same suit he wore to their wedding rehearsal, but sharper somehow, a few threads more intentional. His tie was black, pocket square crisp, no flashy watch, just presence. When he saw her, he didn't flinch, didn't nod, just offered the same polite professional smile he'd given the woman beside him, one of the board members. It was the look of a man who recognized someone from another life. She took a glass of wine she didn't want and drifted to her seat, table 4. Assigned, on her name card, Madison R. Stone, silent shareholder. She turned it face down. The chair next to hers stayed empty. Someone behind her whispered, "Isn't that her husband?" Another voice, "X, I think." She wasn't sure which hurt more, the uncertainty or the assumption. He was called up to speak shortly after the soup course. The MC introduced him as Mr. Stone, managing partner of Stone Advisory Group and trustee representative of Sandwick Holdings. He walked up calmly. No papers, no notes, just that same controlled poise she once mistook for passivity. "Thank you all," he said, voice even, rich. "Tonight isn't just a celebration of financial resilience. It's a celebration of structure, of what holds when the storm hits." Several nodded. He scanned the room, didn't look at her. "In the last quarter, our board has faced instability, headlines, transitions, doubts." A pause, just long enough for the room to hold its breath. "But now," he continued, "we move forward with clarity, with trust, both legal and personal, restored. Tonight we don't toast individuals, we toast stability." Applause, respectful, subtle. He stepped down, sat, not beside her, but 3 tables over between the CFO and a venture fund partner. She watched him laugh at something they said, relaxed and unreadable. He hadn't played for revenge. He'd played for order. She realized then he hadn't hurt her out of anger. He hadn't even spoken to her since the night he left, not once. This wasn't about emotions. This was architecture. She'd spent months trying to decode the silence, expecting an argument, a confession, a late-night call, a slammed door. But what he gave her was far more brutal. Nothing. He didn't unlove her. He just reorganized. She left before dessert, coat wrapped tightly around her like a whisper she didn't want to hear. Outside, the cold air bit into her collarbones. And still, no message from him. He didn't need to say anything. The structure had already spoken. The parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few luxury sedans cooling off under sodium lights and the occasional clink of a wine glass being cleared by catering staff. She waited near the side entrance, watching the door like it still owed her something. Her heels wobbled slightly on the uneven pavement, but she didn't shift her weight. She didn't want to look uncertain, not in front of him, not again. He came out last, of course he did. Always the man who knew how long to wait. The only one who didn't need to rush for attention. His jacket was slung over his shoulder now, tie loosened just enough to say the work's done, but not enough to look undone. She stepped into his path before she lost her nerve. "I need to know," she said, voice cracking at the edges. "Why?" He looked at her. Just looked. Not angry, not smug, just present. "You could have just left," she continued. "You didn't have to blow it all up. Not like this." He tilted his head. "I did leave." She blinked. "That night, the note on the bed, the envelope, that was me leaving." He folded his jacket over one arm. "But you didn't notice, because you were still waiting for a fight." She looked down. "I thought you were bluffing." "That's the thing, Madison," he said softer now. "I never bluff. I just calculate." She stepped closer. The smell of his cologne hit her. Same scent he always wore, somehow more distant now. "I was stupid," she whispered. "I know that. I should have seen it. I just thought you'd always—" "Stay?" he offered. She nodded, eyes brimming. "You didn't just cross the line," he said. "You painted over it. You invited the problem into the house. Called him special. Called him the reason you get up in the morning." He shrugged slightly. "So I answered in your language." She looked up at him confused. "Public display," he clarified. "That's what you wanted, right? Toasts, appearances, influence, and so I gave you the stage. I didn't think it would cost me everything." "It didn't," he replied. "It cost you me." "Everything else was just structure." She laughed, short and bitter. "You sound proud." "No, just accurate." She reached for his hand. Reflex, muscle memory. He stepped back. Not cruel, not dramatic, just enough space to feel permanent. "I'm not the villain here," she said quietly. "No," he agreed. "You're not. But you're not the victim either." Her face crumpled. "Is this really it?" He looked around. At the now silent venue, the empty chairs folded by the side door, the glow of a building that once held meaning and now just held records. "I warned you once," he said. "Just once." "And this?" He paused. His voice dropped, not with anger, but finality. This was follow-through. He walked past her. No goodbye, no glance back. And she stood there, in the cold, surrounded by all the space he used to fill, realizing she hadn't been left behind. She'd been outpaced. Because love doesn't die in explosions. It dies in precision.